My official NBA mock draft post-lottery is someone who watched over 1,000 hours of college basketball this past season. The talent in this draft is off the charts. It's probably the greatest draft class anyone my age has ever seen, and my favorite team has the first pick. And with that first pick, I expect the Wizards to keep it simple. AJ Debonsa is the best prospect in this draft. Yes, there's a debate, but in the context of the Washington Wizards, there shouldn't be. Darren Peterson goes number 2 to the Jazz. Also simple, don't overthink it. His floor is a top 30-ish scorer in the NBA if he stays healthy. I'm convinced now that he's not as much of a diva as I previously thought. I think he's an introverted kid who learned valuable lessons about life during his freshman year. But despite what other people may say, and despite the fact that Darren Peterson might be better from the jump than AJ, I feel like AJ has face of the league upside, where DP feels like more of a prime Ray Allen 10-time All-Star if everything goes right, which is still number 1 pick worthy, but I would take Debonsa. People are saying that the Grizzlies would be too stiff defensively with Boozer and Edey, but I disagree. Like, sure, Boozer isn't that fluid moving his body, but just because it looks a little less natural doesn't mean that he can't be a plus defender. He has a really good frame, and he's still a teenager. He's a high IQ passer. He can play the point forward. He can stretch the floor, which is honestly incredible because 20 years ago, Gam Boozer is an interior post scorer and nothing else. The Bulls would be absolutely ecstatic to take Caleb Wilson because last year they took Noah Esenge in the first round, and he's kind of similar to Caleb Wilson if Caleb Wilson was the least exciting, least cool prospect of all time. The funny thing with Caleb Wilson is that if you're drafting based on who you think can become a generational, two-way, unguardable superstar, then Caleb Wilson goes number 1 in every draft. He just also has a decent chance of not panning out the way people think he will. But if you're a Bulls fan, you should be on top of the world that somehow there's someone this good at pick 4. Number 5 is where things get crazy, in my opinion. I think for any other team, this is probably Darius Acuff. I think he's the 5th best player in the draft. But the Clippers are already heavily invested in Darius Garland, so I think they look elsewhere and end up with Braden Burries. If Arizona wasn't so stacked last season, I think we're easily talking about Braden Burries as a top 6 prospect. He led Arizona in scoring last year. He can lock you up defensively. He's a much better shooter than anyone realizes with room to grow. He can dunk on you. He's gritty. He's extremely coachable. He's versatile. He makes winning plays, and most importantly, he has an NBA level IQ. The goal of playing the sport of basketball is to win games, and when it comes to winning games and making winning plays, I feel like Braden Burries is a borderline perfect prospect. I see an unbelievable amount of Derek White in Braden Burries, and in the modern NBA, that is extremely valuable. Those guys don't just grow on trees. People comparing Darius Acuff to Cam Thomas are legitimately insane. They're not remotely the same player at all. Like, I can promise you that Darius Acuff would be thrilled to finish a game with 8 points and 25 assists. He'd be a steal. And again, I can so easily close my eyes and picture him becoming Stephon Marbury, and the early 2000 Nets culture comes back, and the franchise is saved. Like, this is an important pick. The Nets have to go with Darius Acuff. The Kings could definitely use a true point guard, and ironically, I think they're going to be deciding between 2 guys that remind me a lot of 2 guys that they had and let go of. Kingston Flemings is kind of a less fluid De'Aaron Fox type of point guard, and Michael Brown just reminds me almost strictly of Tyrese Halliburton. I think the Kings are more upset about losing Tyrese Halliburton, so my theory is they're going Brown at 7. If Ade Mara falls to the Hawks at 8, I think it's a borderline lock that they would pick him. I'm seeing it everywhere. It makes way too much sense. He's not a great rebounder for someone who's 7'3", and he's not necessarily primed for an NBA level of fitness and physicality, but when you find a guy who's 7'3" and has fast offensive processing skills, you have to pick him because that's a freaking 24-karat diamond. The Mavericks would be absolutely ecstatic to take a 6'6" point guard top 5 prospect at pick 9, especially considering the point guards on their roster right now are all 6'2" or shorter. The reason I have Wagler a little lower than consensus is I feel like he has offensive gimmicks that he relies on that won't translate that well. He loves to spam this pick and roll slow spin move to create space, and he counters it with a step back, and he's honestly magical at both. But part of me thinks that he's not guaranteed the same success in the league without that natural athleticism, at least not at first, you know? And then to round out the top 10, Kingston Flemings to the Bucks, which is an absolute no-brainer. I originally had Kingston going 7 to the Kings, but I was convinced by people online that his combine measurables are actually a legit point of concern, and because of that, I feel comfortable sliding him down a little bit, but still, like, anywhere from 6 to 10 makes a lot of sense. And the Bucks are streaking in the streets. They're parading, they're grittying because they desperately need a high upside point guard. They cannot leave this draft without one, and they get one with Kingston Flemings. I think Yaxel makes a ton of sense to the Warriors at 11, especially if you don't really care about age, which I don't think the Warriors do. Steph and Clay were both 3-year college guys that were older prospects, and that worked out really well for the Warriors. Draymond Green was a 4th-year senior at at Michigan State. They won 3 championships with that core. They're not afraid of taking an older guy. And if you ignore age, then Yaxel Lenneborg is immediately the best player available. Like, he should probably be a top 4 pick. He's so good. I think the Thunder take Jaden Quaintance at pick 12. I think they can afford to take a risk and hope for the best outcome. And the best outcome for Quaintance is an incredible player, like a Bam Adebayo type rim runner who can guard anyone on the floor. I don't love Nate Ament's game, but I trust Miami to develop guys, and I think he's a good coachable kid. Plus, the Nikola Jovic experiment really isn't working for Miami, so might as well replace him with another 6'10 forward who has the potential to do everything better. For our last lottery pick, I have Morez Johnson going to the Hornets. He's been crushing it at the Combine so far. The Hornets had interior defense and size problems all year. They don't need shooting that badly. I feel like Morez Johnson just makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, for a guy whose weakness is shooting, like, he seems like a pretty good shooter to me. At least he could develop into one. At 15, I have the Bulls taking LeBaron Philon pretty easily, especially after you took a Giannis Garnett mutant at pick 4. The Bulls need a fast, shifty point guard that can put pressure on a defense in ways that Trey Jones and Josh Giddey can't. Philon is that guy. If Ja Morant gets traded, it'd be really funny to see the Grizzlies pick a pasty white boy from Missouri to pair with Cam Spencer and Ty Jerome. Going from high-flying poster dunks and off-the-court drama to like a Midwestern 1950s style Ben McCollum, Tony Bennett offense, it's just incredible. And honestly, why not just pick Alex Caravan with the 32nd pick and maybe even hire Tony Bennett? Just commit to it, right? The Thunder just don't have any roster spots left, so I'm giving them Kareem Lopez in hopes that he continues to play overseas and comes over whenever the Thunder need him, kind of like Louis Scola back in 2002. At pick 14, I was between Hans Steinbach and Morez Johnson for the Hornets, and they end up getting both, really shoring up that interior presence, which is lovely for them. I feel like the Raptors have room for an off-ball bucket-getter guard because the Grady Dick experiment's not really working out, and I mean, Jacoby Walter's good, but I don't necessarily think that he's as attack-oriented, creates off the dribble as much as Dalen Swain. I feel like the Spurs need someone like Chris Sinak Jr. because when Wemby got ejected in Game 4 against the Timberwolves, 98 of the Spurs' 109 points were scored by their guards. They don't have depth in the front court. They need a guy that can get a bucket, and Chris Sinak could develop into that guy off the bench. The Pistons rely a lot on Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris to stretch the floor and put up good numbers from beyond the arc, and I don't necessarily think that that's like a recipe for success long term. Kate Cunningham's great, but he's not an elite shooter. Kevin Huerter is like 31% over the past couple of seasons. Ron Holland, Osar Thompson, Reed, Stewart, Duren, none of them stretch the floor the way that someone like Alan Graves would. Alan Graves shot 40% from 3 as a 6'8 freshman forward at Santa Clara this past season. If the Pistons want to diversify their offense, they should pick him. I don't see Christian Anderson sliding past the 76ers pick because they could use a backup point guard. He reminds me a lot of Tyrese Maxey. He's 42% from 3 last year. That's insane. He also has a 35% assist rate, and in any other draft, he's probably a lottery guy that people are trying to build a team around, but he goes to Philly at 22. I had the Hawks taking a Damara at 8, and CJ McCollum is currently their point guard. He can't play forever. Why not take a flyer on a young point guard that can get mentored by CJ like Ibuka Okori? I'm sure a lot of you don't even know who Ibuka Okori is, and if you don't, just go watch his game film against North Carolina in January, because I can promise you, you're going to fall in love. The Knicks are thriving on offense now that Cat is playing more of a point forward role. I feel like in his past 10 games, he's averaging like 8 or 9 assists. It's completely changed how dynamic this Knicks offense is. They look unbeatable, and Joshua Jefferson is the perfect bench piece to come in and slide into that system as a pass-first forward. The Lakers could also use another bucket getter. I know they need size, but watching their offense without Luka during the playoffs, it just looked really anemic. Like Rui Hachimura, Luke Kennard, guys trying to create their own shot. I feel like Cameron Carr steps in and functionally boost the offensive output of that team. And he just shouldn't be available at pick 25. Like, he's a borderline lottery pick to a lot of people. So the Lakers, in my opinion, would be smart to pick him even if they do need size. Jaden McDaniels called out the Nuggets for being really soft defensively, and he was 100% right. This team needs a high-energy enforcer, physical specimen like Zuby Ejiofor to fill in while Jokic and Jamal Murray kind of score the points. Ejiofor won Depoy in the Big East. He can switch on to guards. He can rebound like better than most players in all of college basketball. He's perfect for Denver. The Celtics live and die by the three, and it's really frustrating to watch, and I don't know if they're ever going to change their game plan, even though it doesn't seem to be working that well anymore. But in my opinion, adding a capable interior defender and a solid post scorer like Henry Vasar is genius for the Celtics. It's kind of what they're missing. I just don't know if they care enough. The Timberwolves don't need that much, honestly. Like, watching them during the playoffs, it's incredible how well-rounded this team is offensively and defensively, but they don't really have that sniper on the wing that they can sort of drive and kick against a Wembanyama and obliterate that defensive scheme that the Spurs are implementing. Momcilovic shot 49% from three on 8 attempts per game against good Big 12 competition. That is absolutely absurd. If that doesn't translate to meaningful NBA minutes, I would be absolutely floored. He isn't a great defender. His body moves in weird ways, but the Timberwolves have so much athleticism around him that it doesn't matter. Just shoot the ball, shoot 50% from three, and you're boosting this team's potential to win a championship. I'm still clueless, like everyone else, on whether Tyler Tanner is going to stay in the draft or not. The fact that he measured in at less than 6 feet at the combine isn't helpful, but at the same time, it would make sense for the Cavs to take a flyer on this kid because James Harden's getting up there in age, and Donovan Mitchell might opt out of his contract this offseason. The Cavaliers need guards that could blossom and develop into starting caliber NBA players, and Tyler Tanner, despite his height, is incredible. And then lastly, the Mavericks at pick 30, best player available here, Isaiah Evans. I feel like the Mavericks would be jumping with joy to walk away with Keaton Wagler and Isaiah Evans as a team that could use some more guard play around Cooper Flagg. If you want more content like this and want to support my channel that's kind of just starting here with 50 subscribers, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. But for now, I'll see you guys next time.